Hello everyone, this is my final video discussion. Let's get started.
So as I talked about in my introduction video at the beginning of the course, I'm a 19-year-old freshman here at Eastern Washington University. I'm from the town of Walla Walla, Washington, which is about 2.5 hours south of Cheney and Spokane. These are some pictures of our downtown. In Walla Walla, we're mainly known for our vineyards and many wineries and wines, as well as our Walla Walla sweet onions, which we have lots of fields of sweet onions. And we're also known for the Washington State Penitentiary, which is located in Walla Walla. And this can kind of tie back into some of the things we've talked about in this course.
So I'm Caucasian and I'm almost entirely from European descent. And I've always known I was white, but I didn't realize that being white, I was often treated differently and many times better than others who are not white. As I've grown older, I've decided that I'm proud to be white because it's who I am, and if I wasn't white, then I wouldn't have the same traditions and culture and the same experiences that I'd have if I wasn't white. But I'm very disappointed in the way that throughout history, whites have treated people that are not white and darker skinned people, and I don't like how that's kind of tainted the way that many darker skinned people view whites and Caucasian race as a whole. And I also don't like that it's kind of tainted the way some uneducated white people have viewed darker skinned people. I've played soccer ever since I was little, and as I got older I kind of realized that identity of a soccer player was kind of going against in opposition to my race. However, I think that stereotype is kind of changing because more and more I see more Caucasian people playing soccer at a higher level. However, in my hometown of Walla Walla, when I was playing soccer through middle school and high school, I was one of the only Caucasians on my team. I was either the only one or maybe there was 2 or 3 out of 20 to 25 players. And here's some pictures of examples of that.
This was an indoor soccer team I was on in middle school. This was my high school team my junior year of high school. And then this was my high school team my senior year of high school.
So the first chapter I chose from our textbook to relate to my race was chapter 4, which is titled The Spread of Ideology, Controlling Images, and Racism in the Media. And as an example, I chose memes, and memes are talked about on page 106 of our textbook. And memes are now becoming a popular idea trending on social media nowadays, and I've seen many memes that have poked jokes at racism and made racial comments, and I believe this can be an example of controlling images because it's affecting the way some lighter skinned people see darker skinned people. And oftentimes I think lighter skinned people are portrayed differently and oftentimes not portrayed as negative as darker skinned people in the media these days, whether it's news or social media. The second chapter I chose to relate to my race from our textbook was chapter 6, titled Educational Inequality, and for that I'm going to be using my elementary school back home for an example. This is Sharpstein Elementary School. This is where I attended school from kindergarten to 5th grade. I was involved in the dual immersion program where I learned half the day in English and half the day in Spanish. As I just mentioned, Sharpstein is a dual immersion elementary school, and because of this I feel they did a great job of providing the same quality of education to both white and non-white students. And that cannot be said about a lot of other elementary schools in different parts of the United States. However, while this education quality was equal, I still feel that many white students were given opportunities that non-white students weren't, such as after-school programs or camps. Many of these after-school programs tailored to the interests of white students and were also primarily hosted in English, and so many of the Hispanic students that were still learning English didn't feel as comfortable attending. And this can kind of be tied back to hidden curriculums, which is talked about on page 160, because these after-school activities were serving the interests solely of the white students. Chapter 7 of our textbook is titled Income and Labor Market Inequality, and I think this chapter can be related back to my race, and I'm going to use my mom's profession as an example. She's a family law lawyer in Walla Walla, And over this Thanksgiving break last week, I talked to her about this very topic, and she explained that although she has as much, if not more, experience than many of the other lawyers in town, and she has a very high success rate, she still typically gets paid less than her male counterparts. But she also explained that while she gets paid less than many of the other male lawyers, she also gets paid more than most of the non-white lawyers in town. And I think this can be explained by the wage gap in the United States, which is talked about on page 170 of our textbook. Lastly, oftentimes in today's society, lighter-skinned people are given easier access to nicer neighborhoods and nicer houses. And this can be related to Chapter 8, Inequality in Housing and Wealth. And an example of inequality between races is the idea of residential segregation, which is talked about on page 198 of our textbook. I live in a neighborhood that's fairly small, but it's in a nice part of town, low crime rate, nicer houses, and all of my neighbors are Caucasian. And then if you go onto the other side of town near the penitentiary, this is where things start to get a little bit sketchy, I guess. And that's just because many of these people that live here, who are oftentimes non-white, it's because they don't have the financial ability to buy into these nicer neighborhoods, and none of the people with that money want to be next to the penitentiary, so that's kind of where they get put. And so that's kind of where residential segregation ties in. But then this also relates back to the wage gaps that I just talked about, and how they aren't given a fair shot at a fair wage, and so they don't have the money to buy into a nicer neighborhood. And then this kind of turns into that cycle where you don't have a good job, you don't have enough money for a nice house, then you're in a bad neighborhood, and we've been talking about this cycle all throughout this course. Alright, I guess this is the end to my final video discussion. I've learned a lot of great things through this quarter and this course that I feel I can apply here at the rest of my time at Eastern, as well as my future career and life in general. I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of you guys' videos. Thank you for the great discussions.